In this video, I'll be counting down the top 10 Pokemon from the Kanto region, that is, the first generation of Pokemon, in Pokemon GO. Every single one of the Pokemon on this list are ones you absolutely must get, whether it's for raid battles, the Go Battle League, or if you want the best collection possible, you will want to be sure you have all of these Pokemon. Now, if you end up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget to hit that bell as well. Okay, so let's take a trip down memory lane and get right into the list. Coming in at number 10, we have none other than Lapras. Now, back in the early days of Pokemon GO, coming across this water and ice type Pokemon in the wild was a monumental event. Of course, the rarity of this Pokemon has diminished over time. Regardless, its impact on the game has been maintained over the years. Since Lapras boasts some really big defense stats, it has been an absolute staple in the Go Battle League, as well as a favorable raid attacker. Needless to say, Lapras is by far one of the best Kanto Pokemon to get. Okay, coming in at number 9, we have the mythical Psychic-type Pokemon, Mew. This tiny Pokemon is one of the most versatile Go Battle League Pokemon currently in the game, featuring an unprecedented 14 different quick attacks and a crazy 25 charge attacks. This is the one Pokemon you can shape to your personal needs. While Mew's stats are not anything to be excited about, its relevance in the Go Battle League cannot be overstated. There are specific charge attacks and quick attacks that are the most meta, and getting these specific moves may completely drain your stock of TMs, but you can throw your opponents off with some of the other moves in Mew's arsenal. Plus, the meta is always changing, which means Mew can always be a reliable Pokemon as its vast move pool allows you to change with it. Now coming in at number 8, we have the Psychic-type powerhouse, Alakhazam. Now, this is the iconic favorite Pokemon of one particular content creator, but it is with good reason. Alakhazam is one of the absolute best Psychic-type glass cannons in Pokemon GO. Especially for newer players, getting a full squad of Alakhazam might be more feasible than having a full team of legendary Psychic types. Even so, Alakhazam can still outperform even most legendaries in terms of raid damage. Needless to say, this is one Pokemon you will not want to ignore. Okay, now coming in at number 7, we have the fighting type Pokemon, Machamp. This Pokemon is infamous for being the best fighting type for several generations. It is only outclassed barely by two other Pokemon, that being Conkeldurr and Lucario. However, the difference in the amount of damage that Machamp can deal in raid battles is minimal, and getting a full team of Machamps for raids is much easier than getting multiple copies of the others. The other notable difference is that Machamp is the one fighting type that has significance in all three of the leagues in the Go Battle League, especially in the Ultra League. In some cases, getting a Machamp may be crucial for your Go Battle League success. If you've been putting off getting yourself a bunch of powered up Machamps, you need to get on it as soon as possible. Now coming in at number 6, we have the original tanky boy, Snorlax. Now when it comes to gym defenders, Snorlax was the absolute king prior to the release of Chansey's evolved form Blissey. Even now, it is still a very powerful Pokemon for defending your gyms for an extended period of time. It boasts some of the highest defense and health, but also has a decent amount of attack. This also allows Snorlax to be a powerful Pokemon for the Ultra League. It can be a well-rounded Pokemon that completes your roster, and even though it is commonly perceived as a more defensive Pokemon, it can be a strong offensive pick as well. But speaking of offensive Pokemon, coming in at number 5, we have one of the strongest attackers in the game, and it is none other than Gyarados. Now, similar to the other Pokemon on this list, Gyarados has the benefit of variety. It can be used as a powerful water type, but it can also be a viable counter to dragon types and psychic types as well. This is of course because Gyarados have so many powerful charge attacks that can be an absolute menace to some of the strongest Pokemon in the Go Battle League. It can also be a solid raid attacker as well. Now coming in at number 4, we have probably one of the most popular and iconic Pokemon on this list, and it is the poison and ghost type Pokemon, Gengar. Without question, most people will be familiar with this Pokemon. If there is any single Pokemon that can represent all ghost types in Pokemon, it is of course Gengar. Much like Alakhazam, Gengar is a very powerful glass cannon. It could deal some of the highest amount of damage in the game, but it is also vulnerable to several opponents. However, because of its high damage, it is still commonly considered a top pick for most raid battles, especially its Mega Evolution. Speaking of which, Mega Gengar is by far one of the coolest looking Mega Evolutions in the game, especially the shiny version. If you still don't have a Gengar in your collection, you absolutely must get this Pokemon. Coming in at number 3, it is the first legendary to make an appearance on this list, and it is none other than Moltres. Now the reason why I have Moltres on this list is not for the fact that I simp hard for Team Valor. This flying and fire type Pokemon is probably the strongest out of the legendary birds in most circumstances. That is of course because it has the highest attack stats out of the 3, and it is also rarely outclassed as a fire type. On top of that, it is potentially one of the strongest flying types you can have as well, since it can learn the move Sky Attack. Now, even though Moltres isn't viable in any of the Go Battle League metas, it is most certainly one of the best Pokemon to have for just about every other part of Pokemon Go. It can be a solid raid attacker, it can be your go-to for Team Go Rocket battles, and it can quickly clear out several gyms as well. Speaking of which, coming in at our runner-up spot is none other than the iconic Dragonite. Now among all the Pokemon on this list, Dragonite was probably the most sought after Pokemon back in the early days of Pokemon Go. This is of course because there wasn't any legendaries available in the game, and finding Dratinis in the wild was insanely difficult. For most players, having a Dragonite in their collection was a massive trophy that you could instantly boast in front of your friends. Of course nowadays, getting a Dragonite is not difficult at all, but some of the reasons why Dragonite was so popular still remains. Specifically, Dragonite is one of the most well-rounded and among the most powerful non-legendary Pokemon currently in the game. It can be used in some of the toughest Ultra League and Master League metas, and it can be a solid raid attacker, gym attacker, and gym defender. Having yourself an army of Dragonite at your disposal could only make you progress further and further in this game. Okay, before we get into our number 1 Kanto Pokemon, let's go over a few honorable mentions. The first of which is going to be the uber tanky Chansey. Now, before Blissey was introduced into the game, having a bunch of Chanseys in your collection meant that you would likely be able to hold down multiple gyms for an extended period of time. It was the absolute tankiest Pokemon in the game, even having higher defense and higher health than Snorlax. However, because of its extremely low attack stats and lackluster move pool, it doesn't necessarily get outclassed by Snorlax. However, because of its powerful ability to hold down gyms, most players sought after several of these Pokemon so that they could take over their towns and paint them the color of their team. The next honorable mentions that I wanted to include on this list are the 2 fully evolved starter Pokemon, Charizard and Venusaur. Now both of these Pokemon need no introduction. Charizard and Venusaur can still be found in the Go Battle League to this day, and both of these Pokemon have extremely powerful Mega Evolutions. The argument can be made that both of these Pokemon are the most useful and the most powerful starters among all the generations, while only a small handful could possibly challenge them for that crown. Finally, the last honorable mention is going to be Moltres' counterparts among the legendary birds, and they are Zapdos and Articuno. Like Moltres, both of these Pokemon can be an absolute menace because of their duo typing. Articuno especially has a lot of potential as a solid Ice-type raid attacker, as there aren't too many of those in the game. Zapdos, on the other hand, often does get outclassed by electric types in future generations. However, if we were to isolate this list to only the Kanto Pokemon, it would be an absolute must-have in terms of electric type attackers. Okay, now that we got all of those honorable mentions out of the way, let's dive into the number 1 Kanto Region Pokemon. It should be no surprise to anyone, but the top Pokemon from the Kanto region is going to be none other than the legendary Psychic-type Pokemon, Mewtwo. This one Pokemon is the complete package. Not only is it one of the best in its class, but it is also probably one of the best among all types as a neutral damage dealer. Mewtwo is by and large one of the best Pokemon currently in Pokemon Go. It has very few rivals when it comes to Psychic types, and overall it has some of the most well-rounded stats in the game. This means that Mewtwo not only deals a ton of damage, but it has the defense and health to take a lot of damage as well. No matter what any player will tell you, you should absolutely dedicate as much of your resources as possible to your highest IV Mewtwo. This is because this one Pokemon can be useful, and in some cases the absolute best, in almost every part of Pokémon GO. This is the quintessential best Pokemon in the game, and rounds out our list as the #1 Kanto Pokemon. Alright, and there you have it. These were my top 10 Kanto Generation 1 Pokemon in Pokémon GO. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Was there a particular Generation 1 Pokemon that I missed? What are your top 10 Kanto Pokemon? Let's have a great discussion. And if it's your first time here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and don't forget that little bell so you stay notified on whenever I upload videos. And I am Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.